I would say if they have the time, they really should start 5 years ahead of time. 3 years would be great, 5 would be ideal. And primarily because the more they understand, the more options and the more control they're going to have in the process. Most doctors wait way too long, so they have very few options when it comes to actually how they want to do it. If you have the time to plan ahead of time, then that just is going to give you, I keep saying options, but it's going to give you those options, but you'll understand more of what you want out of it, right? So like anything in life, the more you can think about what is most important to you, what are the goals that you want to achieve, that's going to help find the best buyer for your practice, and the best how you transition the practice is going to be a lot smoother for you. And I think you'll be happier because of that. It's going to, you'll be able to look back at the practice that you built with pride that the person you sold it to was the right partner. I think the steps, one of the main steps is understanding the financial aspect of it, right? Where are you at personally with your retirement? Do you need to sell the practice as part of your retirement plan? So meeting with your financial advisor, your financial consultant, was probably step number one to understand where do you need to be. Because that will then also help if you meet with an advisor like myself to see what is your practice worth. Does it need to increase over the next 3 to 5 years? And that's probably one of the bigger reasons why it does help to meet as soon as possible, because you have time to change that value. Step two is probably just is talking to your other advisors, right? Whether that's your spouse or an accountant, lawyer, dental consultant, other people that you've surrounded yourself with to help you build the practice, to just talk through what is important to you. Sometimes doctors don't know that until they have a conversation, right? So having a conversation with someone that you trust to kind of walk through what that looks like, what you want out of it, and then meeting with someone like myself that helps give you that free education on what does the market look like today, where are the trends going, again, to understand what are the different options out there for you and educate yourself on what's possible. Because once you know that, we can help design that plan for you, whether it's today or 5 years from now. Another great question. Probably the biggest reason why is just understanding that the times are different now from when the buyer's looking at buying a practice from when they probably bought a practice. So understanding the challenges that they will face as an owner, that they will face as an individual, will help, I think, give some perspective and clarity to what's going to be important for the buyers when they're looking at a practice. And probably the biggest thing is just the cost of becoming a dentist nowadays, right? Student loan is much higher than it was most likely when they graduated. The cost of just building and owning a practice is significantly higher. Today there's obviously challenges with the labor market and staff shortages. So just the more they can put themselves in their shoes, the more they'll understand what the buyer's looking for is going to be important for them when they're making such a huge investment. That's probably the biggest thing is, just understanding the challenges that they're going to face so they can be sympathetic towards that, but then also helping them know what type of personality they want to take over their patients and their practice as well. Patients' credits can be really just a headache. So ideally, they should be addressing that on a routine basis. Whether that is once a year, once a quarter, most of them have never thought about it until they hire us. So most time that's where the problem arises, because now you have 30 years of patient credits. So the way it will impact is if you've never addressed it, you may have a credit that's owed to a patient that is 10 years old. So now, depending on your state laws, you're trying to track them down, figuring out, do you need to reimburse that back to the patient, give it to the state? So it can be a very time-consuming process and sometimes can be a lot of money that will affect how much you receive for the practice or how much you have to reimburse the patients before that sale happens. So really the biggest advice I have is run your credit report often and make the changes you need to. Either pay that money back to the patient. If it's an error and needs to be written off, handle that as soon as possible, because it will just be a time-consuming task that you will have to complete at some point before the sale is finalized. The one I have right now, there has to be something else happening in the practice from a front desk point of view. I've seen reports before that it's $40,000 in what's owed to patients. The one I'm dealing with literally right now is over $200,000. Right. For a practice that's going to sell for $600. So you're talking a third of the price they have to figure out what to do with. Now, this is an extreme case, but yes. So do it on a regular basis. It should be no different than running your accounts receivable and understanding where my accounts receivable balance is, right? If I have patients that owe me money that's, 6 months old, how are you addressing that? Right? Same thing with patient credits. If you have a credit of $500 per patient, how did that happen? Did they not finish a treatment? What else is happening with that patient? So instead of letting it build up for 20 years, right? Work on that, at least once a year, run that report and see where you're at. Again, I think the earlier you can talk to a transition specialist, the better. Whether it's myself or one of my colleagues or hopefully other